Good evening, my fellow villagers. Before I begin my story, I would like to thank all of you. I know each one of you has your own stories of fear and the supernatural that have yet to be told. So tonight, listen closely, because the story I am about to share is not just any story. It is a warning, a tale about a creature that you cannot fight, but you can avoid. Come, close your eyes for a moment, and listen. Let us go back to a night 3 years ago. At that time, I was a young person trying to make a living in the village of Lupang Bato, a small settlement at the foot of the mountain. We had no electricity, no modern conveniences. When we needed food, we went to the forest. We weren't afraid, because the people in our village were used to a life like that, difficult, but full of cooperation and love for one another. One day, an old woman named Lola Estella came to our village. She was a healer who was unknown to many, but she was recognized by the older folk. The first time I saw her, she was a frail woman, dressed in traditional farming clothes. Her weathered face bore deep lines from years of hardship, but there was a strange aura of fierceness around her. "Children," she said, "I have a story that you need to hear." She began to tell us about a creature called the Nuno sa Punso. According to her, the Nuno was a being that lived in the mounds of earth in the forest. It was no ordinary creature. Sometimes it showed kindness, but when angered or when its territory was disturbed, it would become malicious and the result would be death. And when it believed that someone was taking things from the forest, it would harm and destroy them. "Do not try to approach the mounds without permission," Lola Estella warned. "Do not disturb the creatures in the forest. If you wish to live, stay away from the mounds, for an angry Nuno is always watching." We all stared at her. Lola was talking about a place in the forest, surrounded by many mounds, a place often traveled by healers and people with ill intentions. None of us took her story seriously. We thought she was just telling tales. One day, while I and my friends were playing near the edge of the forest, we noticed a mound that had appeared out of nowhere. This kind of thing didn't happen often, so it caught our attention. We jumped over and decided to take a closer look. "This mound looks interesting," Marco shouted. "I bet there's treasure hidden here." We disregarded Lola Estella's warnings. We teased each other and decided to dig around the mound. As we dug, we found a small box, yellowed and old, but shiny. None of us thought anything bad would happen. "Let's open it," Marco suggested. As we opened the box, a cold wind blew through the air. We heard a deep voice coming from within the forest. We all froze and ran away in fear. But just as we turned to run, we felt something like a sudden gust of wind and a blinding light. "Something is wrong. Something is wrong," I screamed. When we returned to the village, we could see the fear in Lola Estella's eyes. As we arrived at her house, she came to us and gave us a grave warning. "The Nuno sa Punso is not just a creature," she said. "For every anger it feels, for every pain it endures, it must take revenge. A life is the price for anyone who dares to disturb its territory." The next day, there were whispers in the village that several of the younger villagers had gone missing. No one had seen them, and no one had heard anything. The air was filled with the cold scent of the forest. And the worst part was, there were young people who were seen but never returned to their families. My story does not end there, my fellow villagers. Because on one cold, dark night, Marco and I ventured into the forest to search for the missing. As we reached the place where we had first seen the Nuno, we heard a terrifying scream coming from the forest. We looked and saw a shadow, an enormous figure with long claws and a fierce, menacing gaze. "If you don't want to vanish, get away now," said an old voice. "The mound is witness to your sin." We froze, unable to move. We could feel its power, the force that paralyzed us. We couldn't speak or move. The last thing I heard from Marco, before he vanished from my sight: "Enough, Lola Estella. Forgive us." To this day, my fellow villagers, I don't know what happened to my friends. Whether they are alive, or if they vanished into the hands of the Nuno, I will never know. But I stand here now, to tell this story and give this warning. The Nuno sa Punso is not just a tale of the supernatural. It is a reality that still exists in the forest. Their anger is a force that takes the souls of those who seek what they should not. Do not attempt to pass through the forest. Do not walk in the dark. The mound is not just a pile of dirt. It is a witness to the wrath of the being that resides within it. Remember, my fellow villagers, avoid the mound, avoid the Nuno. If you see such a mound, do not step on it, do not disturb it. Because if you trespass, nothing will come back to you. If you like this kind of video, subscribe and join the terror. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all our latest spine-tingling uploads.